came here to talk about planets, building planets in 3D and building them in Blender. We're gonna do a pretty fast, I'll try run through pretty quick, but the main idea here is just to look at how to do this yourself. Why would you want to do this? One of the quickest solutions I'd think of is for an earth zoom. There's always a time you'll need to do a zoom from space. So let me get that video that I should have opened. Let's see. Close the tab. Is everyone good though? Can still hear me? Sasa. Videos. No. What's that text hapo kando? This is just some info for myself. I uploaded this to Gumroad as well, so I just kept the link. I kept the info there for anyone who downloads it. But I was trying to find an other. This one? Yes, there we go.
Les chercheurs basés en Afrique ont fait un travail incroyable en développant des innovations révolutionnaires en résolvant certains défis les plus redoutables du continent.
You could probably also
Ils ont
do this
proposé des
inside After
solutions qui
Effects
adressent des problèmes
if
locaux.
you
Par exemple,
follow the
la
same
résolution
process.
des problèmes incroyables.
But
Les chercheurs
same general idea. You can do just a nice and quick.
Les chercheurs basés en
Earth
Afrique
zoom.
ont fait un travail incroyable en
Could have
développant
had the
des
moon
innovations
spin around it as
révolutionnaires
well, but
en résolvant certains défis
that
les
was
plus
just a bit too
redoutables
much
du
detail
continent.
for what
Ils ont
we're
proposé des
going for here.
solutions qui adressent des
So, let's start this one from scratch. So we'll go File, New, General, and we'll go to. We're just gonna straight up cheat this and get our textures from this website. It's called Solar Textures, and they have textures for about every planet. They're based on actual scans, I believe. So what you want to do is go here and download the textures. So you can download day, night, clouds, normal, and specular. Make sure you download the same size for everything. Oh, someone's joined. Cool. Alright, so you go to Solar Textures and you can download these guys. Let me post this in the chat. There we go. And yeah, just make sure you download all of them and you download them at the same size. So 2K, 2K, 2K. Let me go to this one. Just unpack these real quick. Okay. Yeah, so let's go download. Alright. Just to keep things organized, you can just create a nice clean folder system. So day map goes in there. Get the night one as well. Now this is the tricky part. How are we gonna transition between the day and the night one? So as you're downloading, you're kinda already looking into what kind of problems you have coming up, as well as clouds. How are we gonna show the clouds on top? Yeah. So once you have them downloaded, thank God for speedy internet. Once you have them downloaded, you can just put them, just organize things. So we can start with a new folder, just call it textures. And we'll dump all these guys in there. And let's not forget moon. So moon is here. Now moon only has the surface, they don't have that specular and normal. And I'll just show you guys how to make your own. Not really make your own, but kind of fake it inside Blender as well. Inside Blender. So show in folder, there's all our textures. They're all 2K, so that's good enough for now. You can use the 8K ones if you want to do an even closer zoom, like really not really go close into the earth, but just to, if you're gonna go closer than the 2K we're about to use, then you'll definitely need the 8K texture. So we'll go into Blender and start a new project. I'll just remove this guy and add a sphere. Oh man, someone's gonna hate me for this. They'll be like, man, you just opened this thing and put a sphere. Yes, I did. We can put the size to like 5. Size for now doesn't really matter. Actually it does. We don't have to do the same scale as what the actual earth is, because Blender also has restrictions, or any software actually has restrictions on not only on size, but the renderer also has restrictions on how far the rays are allowed to go, how big certain maps should be. So when we get too big, things are gonna get chopped off and cut off, and really there's no real reason to do all this stuff to scale properly. And also, if you think about it, the moon is really far from the earth, so even the distances and the scale of the moon to the earth is not gonna be completely accurate, so we may as well just keep going with our inaccuracies. So I'm gonna remove the light. I can hide the camera, just select it and press H. Then I can switch over to the workbench mode, which is the third icon here. This will let me see textures. So right now it just has the default white texture, and I'll switch over to shader editor and I'll create a new material, and we'll call this Earth Day. So this is how Blender starts out with any texture. We have the principled BSDF, and it's just white, and it has all these basic settings. Now what we need to do is plug in those textures. We have quite a number of them. We have clouds, day map, night, normal, and specular, and we need to find the correct slots to put into this BSDF. So what I'll do first is just drop in day map and then plug that into base color, and we have our Earth, and it's done. Thanks for attending my Hangout. You've learned how to create an Earth. We're done, you know. Once you've connected that in, we still have to add more detail to it. It doesn't really look interesting. We need to add the background, the sky, the atmosphere, and all those special effects, and also the night itself. So one thing we can do to get rid of these boxes here is just to select the object, press W. That's gonna bring the context menu, and you'll see here shade smooth. That'll just get rid of those boundaries. Another option is also to increase the subdivision, so we can add subdivision surfaces to it. But we don't really need to. Right now we can see some edges here, but we'll fix that a bit later. There's no need to slow down the comp or anything like that. So we have Earth Day. It's plugged in. It's looking okay. Let's add a light that's going to simulate our sun. So I'll switch to Eevee render mode so that we can see the lights, and then I'll press Shift A to add, go light, and I'll add a sun. You shouldn't add a sun, and I'll just show you why. It makes sense right now, but due to the way we are actually building this, remember this is just like essentially a marble that we're lighting, and we're trying to use an actual sunlight to light it. So there's a way Blender treats sunlight that's not ideal for the result we're looking for. What we'll do instead is go to spot, or actually let me show you that problem. I'll need to show you that problem on the other file, so let me open it here. I think I fixed it here. But I hope I'm not going too fast. Everything's making sense so far, yeah? Maybe I should speed up. We're all good, yeah? Chime in? Yeah. So, okay, so one thing I noticed with the light, let me set sun and put to 8, is it looks a bit different. It does tend to look a bit different, and when you go to certain angles, oh man, it's not showing now. At a certain angle, the sunlight wasn't working correctly. It was showing some green box, some black boxes, and I wasn't exactly sure why it was doing that. But once I switched it to a spotlight and kind of figured out that that's what was going on, the problem went away. So I guess it's sunlight is not bad anymore, but I wouldn't trust it anyway. I'd still do it the way it worked before. So I've added a spotlight pointing at the earth, and I'll add the power to like 10,000. Let's add a whole bunch of zeros. So here we are. We've put this, and we kind of want to turn this as well so that we're showing Africa in the light. Yep. And then we can tilt it a bit, because the earth is after all tilted a little bit. Which way is it though? Is it that way or this way? It's this way. Yeah, it's up. Okay. So just to help get the picture as well, for us guys, we can set the background to be dark, and over here we can disable the floor and the axis, so it's just a nice black void. Okay, not completely black, won't see the controls, but yeah, something like that. Now the thing we can get started with first, before we even start thinking of adding night lights and such, is how we're gonna do the atmosphere. So right now I think maybe this guy is just a bit too bright. So what I like to do is to half things pole pole, and then I can do specular down, roughness down. Actually, I think I'm skipping a step. We're supposed to be doing the textures first. So we've done the day map. We can add the specular map and the normal map, and we can just have night just chilling there. So we can use it a bit later. So let's arrange this guys a bit better. So with Node Wrangler, which is an add-on, you can go Preferences, Add-on, Node Wrangler. You can Control-Shift-Click on a node, and then it will just show it by itself. So we can show the specular map, and you'll see where it's black is basically the land, and where it's white is the water. And this will help us with setting different speculars for different spots. It should be kind of like different values in places, but it looks like it's just a clean black and white map. So we can take advantage of the fact that it's more like a mask as opposed to something that has in between values. We can take advantage of that in order to give the land and the sea different specular values. Then we have normal, which is it's going to give the ground the bumpiness of the surface of the earth. It doesn't really have anything we can look at, but one thing we should note in advance is to set the color space to linear, because normal maps don't actually use color spaces, so we need to set this to linear, otherwise it won't work quite right. Not quite noticeable to the average eye, but something good to know. So we have this plug. Yeah, so that's how all these maps are gonna be used. So let's put back the principal BSDF. We'll plug the normal. Currently the normal doesn't have a vector, it's actually just giving a color. So what we need to do in between is to add a bump. we put the color into the height, and then we put the normal into normal. And now you'll see kind of here, especially on the edge, you'll see we have some terrain going on. It tends to be a bit strong, but it's good to have it a bit extreme as opposed to not. Let's see. Okay. It's good to have it too strong, and then you can turn it down. And also something to note is we can adjust here in the bump. We can adjust the strength just to make it stronger or less. Yeah, actually. Cool. So as we spin the earth, you'll kind of see there all the details showing up. We could... Oops, I just realized something. Okay, no, maybe not. Okay, so that's the day done, and that's the bump done. Let's get the specular done. So as you can see on the sea, if you look at this bright spot here, as we move over the land and the land and the sea, it's kind of the same. So we want to give some differentiation between how the roughness looks on different parts of the earth. So to do that, we'll use this guy here, and what we'll use is a node called range mapper or map range. It might look a little bit complicated, but it's not really. Or actually, let me just use something simpler. What we'll use is no, color ramp work. No, it won't. We have to use map range. Mainly because we have to use map range mainly because of the it's just black and white, so color ramp won't help. So we'll plug this into the value, and then we'll control shift click on this, and you'll see it's gonna show the same thing. Now what it's currently doing is all the blacks are 0 and all the whites are 1. So we have the ability to now change what they're going to correspond to using this map range. So currently our roughness or our specular is set to 0.232, and once we plug this in here, we're going to lose that number. So we need to be able to bring it back in some way, and that's what the map range is going to do. So I'll control shift click back on the principal shader so we can see our result, and let's see, 0.232 might not be the best value actually, so let's find what's best. I need to admit someone there. Okay, so let's find what works best. That's going to be just to play around with this and see what works. So the water should be dimmer. What do you guys think? No, brighter, dimmer. But I know definitely the land needs to be a pretty low value, so that it can help show these rough edges as more clearly. So for the land, we'll see that the specular value we want is 0.05, and then we can put this over the water and put this up to 0.83. So down here we'll set to max 0.83, and then to minimum 0.05, and then we'll send that result to the specular, and if all has gone according to plan, yes, we should have different speculars on both sides. We can do the same shift D with the roughness, because roughness is going to help spread out the light. So over the C we've said 0.47, so 0.477. And then for land we want something a bit lower, so 0.2. So result goes to roughness, value goes to the specular map. I hope I didn't mix them up. I didn't. Yeah, so you can see here it's a very bright highlight. It's not really glowing outwards, but on this side it's a bit dimmer of a highlight, but it's really spreading the light out. And that gives it a nice look. So that's the specular and the two map ranges going into specular and roughness. I hope that's made sense, guys. Right? Should the water have tiny bumps too? It can. You could add those tiny bumps just to like simulate waves or something, right? Yeah, we could try and add something like that. So it can be an interesting way to show how we can use this specular. So to add bumps to the but we'll have to mess around a bit with these. Let's see, vector math is not something I want to mess around with too much because of these. Okay, there is a way you could do that. You could add say, what's it called, Musgrave texture. It looks like this. We can scale it down. No, not this one. Yes, actually. Can scale it, mess around with detail. It should be... There's one of these options that looks really wavy. Something like that, maybe. So let's say we're gonna add this as the texture on the... there is a wave texture, but it tends to get a bit weird because you can kind of tell there's a direction they're going in. Okay, it's really up to you to pick which of these two you'd prefer to use, but I'd probably just go with this. Looks a bit more noisy, not too clean but a bit more noisy. Then we can do... someone's gonna hate me for doing this, but you can use this specular as a mask to mask out this and decide where it goes. I don't really want to do it right now because of how it's gonna mess with the bump. I'm not sure how it's gonna mess with the bump, and I'm gonna get obsessive about getting it to work, but you can certainly do it. Let's do it in the color maybe, instead of trying to do it in the bump. It doesn't necessarily have to be there. So yeah, I can go with that excuse. Yogi says it would be difficult to see waves from space. Yeah, but it's definitely a bit too clean, the way the surface looks right now. But okay, I guess that's something we can try a bit later on. I might get burnt out just doing that alone. So let's go to the next stage, which is to make, let's see, which is to add the night stuff. So something, we can exploit two things here to get the night stuff happening. The first is that there's emissions. Blender has an emission layer, and the night thing itself is just it's just this basically. So we can take advantage of the emission layer, and if we just plug this in directly, did I say emission layer? The emission feature. Let me plug that into emission. Where is it? Here we are. If you plug it into emission, it will emit on this side, and on this side it won't. It actually is, technically speaking, but the way the renderer works is that lights basically overwrite emission. If we could get the emission to be bright enough, you could probably still see. So technically speaking, the lights are still on. In a way, you can kind of see some splotches of lights. This is the 2K texture, so you can't really get too close. But you can see the lights are still kind of on, especially on these guys in the border. So if you're not getting too close, if you don't really need that much detail, I wouldn't bother trying to mask it out. But right now, I definitely can tell. And if you wanted to do it the hard way, we can also explore how to do that. And let's do that right now. So the one thing for sure is we definitely need it in the emission channel, and that's going to just help it look brighter when the lights are out and we're here in the dark side. We definitely still need to be able to see this here. So our main goal is actually just to fix this transition area where we have some stuff showing and others are not. Where we have lights showing in a place where it's obviously daytime. Is it dusk? Maybe the sun is still setting. They switch on the lights early. Guys, we're just showing an earth zoom. We don't guys thinking about that. So let me just show you how to do that. It's pretty simple actually. Blender has this guy called shader to RGB, and this is exclusive to Eevee, so it won't work with cycles, but it's a pretty nice little guy we can use. And what it does is it takes what a shader is outputting. So we can take let's say diffuse BSDF, plug it into the shader to RGB, and now what this is outputting is what this shader is seeing. And I know that's kind of obvious, like why don't we just plug it in here then? But the good thing with shader to RGB is that it's converting diffuse BSDF to a color. And now, just like the specular map, the way it was giving us a black and white map to work with, we can now use this shader to RGB as the same thing, a black to white map. To give us more control on that transition section, I'll add this color ramp, and nothing's really going to change. You'll see this got a bit less bright, this got a bit darker because of it's getting clumped, but don't have to worry about that for now. What's important is we can now move this black and white point to kind of give us some control over what's happening here in the middle. So we can move the transition point around if we want to. So let me just push this back and go to the day map. We'll need to grab the day map and the night. So where's night? Where did I put night? Where did night go? Here's night. Plugged into emission, that's why. Okay, so we have the day map, we have the night map. As you can see, it's actually, it already has the earth itself on it. It's not just the lights alone. So that's kind of helpful. So let's get a mix RGB node. We'll grab our setup here and connect it to the factor, and then we'll connect color, the day one to color 1 and the night one to color 2. And if everything went according to plan, no, I didn't. It's backwards. We have night in day and day in night. Okay, so to fix that, I'll just come over to this and swap these two. Alright, so now it's making a bit more sense. I don't know why lights were suddenly causing shadows, but problem easily solved. So by moving this guy, we can remember we're not actually looking at the lighting. What we're looking at right now is what the texture is producing, because we're looking at this, we're not looking at this. So the light itself is not affecting this. So let me go to, where is this guy? Control Shift click here, and now is when we're looking at the final result. This has not actually been plugged into anything yet, but we'll get there. So let's go here. Here we have the base color. This we're going to plug into here as the base color of the ground, so that we have a doubling of light. Wow, I should have really thought of that. My bad. What should have actually happened is now I'm relying on this as the emission. Paradox. What I should have actually done is made this black and then plug this into emission, and then we keep this in here. Putting it in color actually doubles the light, because if you're using the shader RGB and then this, the darkness was just getting doubled. So it should actually be just using the shader RGB as a mask for the light like this. And at least this way we can also still do what I said. We can move this around to change the transition point. So let's go back here and just fix that real quick. As you can see, it's moving over there. At least now we don't have lights here where it's still daytime. Okay, so that's done. Now our node graph is getting not really crazy, actually. Not just yet. We should start grouping stuff together though. So we can put this down here. We can select all these, go to node and choose join in a new frame, and we can label this as label this as night, and then these guys are pretty obvious. It's bump, and this is going to be called what? This is the specular map. Alright, cool. So hope that's made sense so far. I'm gonna try speed up just a bit to add the atmosphere stuff. So that's also going to be added into the emission layer, and this one we're going to take advantage of Fresnel's. When you look at the Earth, especially in really fancy pictures, it tends to have this bluish glow to it, which comes from the atmosphere. And regardless of what kind of angle you look at it from, it tends to have this bluish look. It's also more pronounced on the side where the sun is, but again, for the most part, most of this artistic renders that people have seen of the Earth are actually renders, not real. So yeah, people don't know that actually. Most of them are renders or have been adjusted in some way, but you'll see they tend to have this bluish glow. This is a real one. So it's bright up here. You can see it's kind of white up here, and then it fades into blue and then goes down to black. We could use the shader to RGB again on top of and use the same sort of method to make it glow more on one side than the other. But I kind of like that this kind of glow you can see all over the globe. So let's go back and try and achieve that. So first I'll add a layer weight, and this is basically like a Fresnel. From whatever direction you look at something, it's going to have all the faces that are facing away are going to be white, all the ones that are facing directly towards you are gray. And if you add a color ramp, you can make it black to white. I preferably use facing. Facing is a bit more forgiving than Fresnel. So as you can see, it does basically that. So we can change this to say bluish and just have a white one at the edge, and change this one to a dark blue instead of black, just a really dark blue. So we'll head on over to emission, because this is kind of light, being light messing around in the atmosphere. We want it to be also visible in most of the earth, so I'm going to use the emission channel. So to do that, we'll need to mix it with this night stuff. So I'll just add a mix RGB, plug color to the top and this other guy to the bottom. Control Shift click to see what's going on. It's currently set to mix. What I can change this to is screen or add, because they're mostly just light involved. So now we can see the night work that we did before, and now we can see this glow on top. The glow is a bit intense. I can probably use this shader to RGB setup here to mask it a bit. Should I? I should. Okay. It's gonna bother me, guys. I probably shouldn't, but let's just do it. And we'll copy this, set it to multiply. Is it multiply? This should be now this way, right? No, this way. Oh, confused myself. Oh, there, it wasn't high enough. So something like that. And then this can now go to the emission. Oh my goodness. Oh no, it is fine. That side should be because this is just this alone. Sometimes sometimes I mix them up. It can be a bit hectic. Okay, so we have the glow there now. You can see here it's a bit darker. Here it's not really visible because of the bright light, but that's okay. Let's add in the clouds. So clouds is basically the same deal. We could add them on top using the same process we've done here. So let's go down to, did I bring in clouds yet? No, I hadn't. So let's go here and grab clouds, which basically looks like that. And we'll do the same approach as we are done with mixing the colors here with a mix node. So mix RGB, plug in day, plug in night. We'll set this to, it's currently mix, which looks okay, but not quite. It's kind of in between. It's darkening the day one. So what we actually need is screen, and that's just going to screen the clouds on top. Yeah, okay, actually it's also thinking about how to connect them and make sense of how they'll come together. Gets a bit tricky. So there we have the clouds, and it's pretty straightforward, but what I'd also like to do is try to get some shadowing from these clouds. So what we can do is to add the shadowing underneath, and basically add it as a copy of this earth here. So, which is exactly how I'd even do it in After Effects. All this stuff I'm doing here is actually what I do with CC Sphere in After Effects. Yeah, and a bunch of layers. So we'll grab this is looking a bit. No, we haven't plugged this in yet, so it needs to go here. And we'll just get, let's give it a sec to cache. We'll just get these basic clouds, and it doesn't make sense that they're not really casting a shadow onto the earth. So we definitely need to get that going on. And once again, we'll abuse the shader to RGB. So RGB, someone's joined. Oops. So again, we'll use the shader to RGB. It needs something to work with, so diffuse, plug it into shader. It's gonna show this, which is okay. Let's bring this up here. And then we'll make a copy of the clouds and just make it black. So I'll add invert. Okay, sorry, I'm kind of doing a lot of the stuff in my head. This is the clouds. We want to invert it so that we're showing it's kind of just the shadows. It's essentially what's going to be the shadows. Oops. Yeah, that's going to be the shadows. And we also want them to be only in the bright area, so that's why the shader to RGB is here. So now we need to figure out how we're gonna mix it into here so that it's underneath these clouds over here. So we definitely need to merge this first. Oops. We need to merge these two together. Oh my goodness, we need to merge the day map, we need to merge it with the shadows on top of it, and then have these second set of shadows come on top of it. So this will go here, and then, oh my goodness, this goes here, and we need to add a color ramp. Yeah, when you guys signed up, did you think it was gonna get this complicated? I definitely didn't. So let me put the ramp on this side. I think this needs to be multiply. Alright, cool. then the shadows go on top, and then did anyone ask a question? I think I had some audio. Nothing? Okay. So I'm going to add a texture mapping node to this, which is going to allow me to just rotate it a bit. Oops. Rotate it just a little bit, 0.01. Oops, let's not rotate. This will let me just rotate the shadows a bit so that we can now see them. And the good thing with the rotation is they're a bit perspective friendly, so we can now see the shadows casting. Cool. And since we use the shader to RGB, there are no weird shadows going on this side. And since it's procedural, we can rotate the earth however we want. The night will always be on the dark side, and the day will always be on the day side with their clouds, thanks to the shader RGB. So finally, we can add the moon. So I'll make this one quick. Let's add the UV sphere again. Alt G to center it at R. Scale it down. I'll go to edit mode, select all the polygons, and this is just so I can keep the origin there. And then I can scale this down. So this way, when I rotate, it will rotate this way instead of the rotation being here. So same thing, shade smooth. Can zoom in and add a new material. Go over here, drop moon in. Connect it to base. And then I'll add a bump and a ramp, and connect this to this color to height, normal to normal. And initially it's gonna look really crazy when you just plug in a color. This is what tends to happen when you plug a color into the bump node. So we'll just put the strength kidogo to just a really low value. Even this distance we can reduce just so that it's not so strong. And then we have basically a nice bump from the color channel. And that's pretty much it. We can add some bloom to give it some nice glow. Ambient occlusion doesn't really do anything. We can increase the sample so that this shadow looks a bit better. But generally speaking, that's all there is to it. What you can do is add some animation. So let me add a plane axis. Oops. And we can, since the sphere already has a slight tilt to it, oh no, it doesn't wobble. The earth doesn't wobble. It still rotates on its axis. So I don't need to account for that. So I was thinking it rotates a different way, but it still rotates on the z-axis. The tilt stays the same the whole time. So at frame 1, I'll set a keyframe on Z, insert single keyframe. I can make this 25 frames. There's no need for so many. and at frame 25 I'll set this to 359. Insert single keyframe. The reason I'm not doing 360 is because then frame 0 and frame 1 would be the same, but it wouldn't loop properly like that. We can also see it's kind of speeding up. It's speeding up and slowing down. So I'll grab the earth and press T and choose linear. And this will just make it spin at one speed. Okay, maybe these are too few frames. Alright, and we have the earth spinning. Let's now do this guy. So here we can put it back there, and then here we can move it straight till there. This shadow moving like this doesn't look good in terms of visually, so I can probably stop it somewhere there. Or I can even just make this smaller. But visually speaking, I don't like that distortion too much. Set single keyframe, and there we have it. You can see the moon kind of comes into the light, so let's fix that by increasing this, not this radius, the cone size. Then I can move this back. I can even move it this way. There's a lot of space wasted on this side, so I might be able to do this. How can you create infinite space with stars if you're moving around Earth? Oh, stars! Ooh, I actually do have a stars background. I'm supposed to make that. You can go to the world. Let's switch to world mode and add a Voronoi. If you're doing this in After Effects, you can add a fractal noise, and that's basically just going to create this noisy thing. You can give it some scale. That's gonna make them really small, but they're kind of the opposite color, so we'll add a color ramp and then just squeeze up the values, and the more you squeeze them up, the less they become, and eventually it just becomes stars when you can get a few enough of them or visible. You can also double it up, so let's do that, and then scale, scaling down makes even smaller stars. Sweet. And then we can mix them together. Mix RGB, set it to screen, color 1, color 2. This goes to color here, this goes to surface. Now we have chunky stars, beefy stars, and tiny stars. Maybe these are a bit too small. Okay, then we can add Musgrave, which is this kind of thing. Oh man, it's already spoiled what I'm gonna do. Color ramp. I use this for almost everything. This make purple, a darkish purple, and this make a darkish blue, so that it has that variation. It's not just one color. Just those, yeah, that subtle variation makes it look nice, especially when you do this. And then it's never done. Duplicate. And then make this look like some galaxies. What was this thing again? Okay, now I'm just sliding stuff around. I'm actually not sure what I was looking for. Yeah, okay, let me just remove this for now. And then mix these two together again. So I'll take the stars, move them over. Node, join frame, stars. Okay, and then mix RGB. This goes down, this goes up, this goes screen, and this goes here, that goes there. Ta-da! Galaxy. Who's gonna make this with meshes? Are you nuts? My GPU can't. But yeah, there you go. Stars. Cool. I think if you mess around with the specular shader RGB, you can probably figure out how to do the waves. Would you still want to do the waves on the water now? Probably not. I think with the shadows and the clouds it might get a bit noisy, but it's worth a try.